I don't know, what's some good banter?
I recorded my first national commercial
Oh,
this
nice.
week, so
Yes,
that's
I
that's
saw
fun
that.
banter.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, yeah, so you might hear me on the radio.
If I listen to the radio, which I do not,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it's like I only listen to the radio when I am in my car going to the grocery store or going to, like, a friend's place or something like that. It is literally the only time the radio is on.
yeah, I
Mhm.
suppose I'm in Uber sometimes. It could happen.
It could happen, yeah, and I guess, like, I don't know, I have to double check, like, my contract because it's like I think they said that it might be on digital.
But I'm like, well, there's podcasts, and I know there's a lot of radio stations that just also host podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts now. If I am doing literally anything else, I need to be listening to a podcast to not get distracted. It's like dishes, podcast, cooking, podcast,
Yeah, yeah.
folding laundry, podcast. It becomes much easier to fold laundry if you're listening to a podcast while doing it.
It's really true, yeah, like, I think I often fold my laundry while I'm, playing Dungeons& and Dragons with people because it is, in fact, like, a delightful activity to occupy my hands while I am, like, listening to people talk.
Hello and welcome to the Fast and Broken podcast, where we take a critical look at the fast-moving world of tech and online culture. I'm Carly Richter, a software engineer and startup founder who did not come up with a tagline for this again, who has approximately like 15 topics to talk about on our agenda today, and we're not going to get to all of them because lots of things happened, but
Lots of
we'll do
things
our
happen.
best.
We'll do
So,
our very best. Yeah, and I'm Teresa Kramer, MBA student, project manager, and semi-professional voice actor who also had a really busy week and just has not had a chance to think of an intro.
all right.
Mhm,
So yeah, just jumping right into it. Our topics today, we're going to talk about some of the things that AI CEOs said at Davos, the
mhm.
World Economic Forum, that was this week, because there were a couple different things. Then we're going to talk about some controversy about a interview that the Razer CEO gave at CES. And then finally, we're going to get to Claude's Constitution, internally known as the Soul Doc, which we talked about
Yeah.
several weeks ago at this point. And I said eventually they're going to release it officially and we'll have some things to say about it and we'll talk about it again then. So then is now. Davos stuff.
Yeah.
I have a couple of articles here in particular, which is Dario Amodei and Satya Nadella making
Mhm.
comments. Um, Dario Amodei's I liked because it's a lot of the sort of same thing that he's been saying, which is like, guys, this is going to be really impactful on the
Mhm.
economy, and we need to have some sort of social safety net that involves taxing the AI companies to spread the wealth around, or else, basically.
Yeah.
Some of the specific quotes from this article are: Amodei painted a potential nightmare scenario that AI could bring to society if not properly checked, laying out a future in which 10 million people, 7 million in Silicon Valley and the rest scattered elsewhere, could decouple from the rest of society, enjoying as much as 50% GDP growth while others were left behind. Um, and then he says, I think this is probably a time to worry less about disincentivizing growth and worry more about making sure that everyone gets a part of the growth, Amodei said. He noted that this was, quote, the opposite of the prevailing sentiment now, but that the reality of technological change will force these ideas to change. I mean, I hope it'll
Mhm.
force them to change, but
Yeah. Mhm.
because yeah, that's super interesting. And a lot of what he's alluding to there is a lot of the pushback of trying to do any kind of regulation or taxation on AI companies at this point is that it will disincentivize growth and give the advantage to China in the AI race, et cetera, et cetera. Which reminds me of another thing that he said that I don't think I have linked here, but I
Mhm.
can find an article for it and put it there later, which is he was talking about the deal to allow more powerful chips to be sold to China,
Mm.
which is a deal that like Trump has allowed and Nvidia was excited about, et cetera. And he was like, that's a really, really bad idea. Selling these powerful chips to China is like selling nuclear weapons to North Korea. So he was not a fan of that one. But
No.
it is also an interesting point where it's like, oh no, we couldn't possibly tax the AI companies 10% because then China will win. But we will send really powerful NVIDIA chips to China because then we could make some money about it. Uh,
Yeah.
so yes, export controls on chips are not my area of expertise, but I keep reading more about it lately because it seems like a really sort of pivotal issue in a lot of this stuff, and I'm not sure I
Yeah.
understand what people are doing about it. So
Yeah.
the federal
Yeah.
government in particular.
Well, like, I do feel like the federal government in particular right now is not smart when it comes to these things. Like,
Yeah.
just broad strokes, not good economic policy in our current administration.
Mhm. I will say there's apparently a rift in some of the White House staff around this kind of stuff where, like,
Mm.
Steve Bannon does not agree with a lot of the pro AI company stuff that they're
Mhm.
doing, and
Yeah.
it has a lot of concerns about it, which is interesting because there is
That.
like the sort of like
Mhm.
big tech CEO faction and then like the core MAGA.
Oh God, yeah. Like it's definitely it's also yeah, like that's just so weirdly counterintuitive. It's like we'll sell AI to China to make money, but like it's like taxing makes the federal government money. That's literally how the federal government makes money. And so it's like we don't want to tax these companies though because they're my buddies. I
Also,
just
it's like
don't have.
surely
Yes.
taxing your revenue by like 10% or whatever, like, I mean, that's just a
Right.
number people have thrown around, is not gonna like dramatically destroy your economics. It's not like your
Yeah.
economics have anything to do with how you're working now, which
Right. Exactly. It's like you're not even making profit right now. It's like you're just playing with pretend money. So like what happens if we just take 10% of your pretend money away from you? It's like what God, yeah. I can't talk about the economics of AI companies without getting like just really annoyed. It's just you're pretending to have more money that you
yeah,
haven't
I mean, they
made.
make
And it
like
was just like
$5 billion a year. It's just they spend way, 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 way more than that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
but yeah, another thing that didn't even make it onto our agenda is that I do see a big trend lately of being like, "Oh, is OpenAI in trouble?" Like, because
Yeah.
you're really pushing hard on the, "Oops, I guess we need to make money." Even people who are pro OpenAI being like, I don't know about what they're doing right now." So there's a bit of a trend, a reverse of trend there, which I think is super interesting. But we could talk more about that later, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
So the other specific Davos thing I have in here is this futurism article titled "The CEO of Microsoft suddenly sounds extremely nervous about AI." Long line, not sounding too confident about AI not being a bubble.
Hmm.
Um, so yes, he also spoke at Davos and pontificated about what would constitute such a speculative bubble, and said that the long-term success of AI hinges on it being used across a broad range of industries, as well as seeing an
Mhm.
uptick in the developing world where it's not as popular. And then futurism's take on this is if AI fails, in other words, it's everyone else's fault for not using it, which I think is a little bit of a cynical take on that, but it is like kind of what he's saying.
Yeah.
um, I would say that that is true, but it is your responsibility to build something that is useful enough and
Mhm.
not morally objectionable enough that people want to use it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, what do you mean? As a business, it's your responsibility to produce a product that people want to use that is a viable product. It's like you're not entitled to people's, you know, business just because you exist. Yeah.
If plenty of people seem to think they're entitled to people's business because they exist. I,
It's such a weird like shift in our economy that it's like no, I don't have to make a good product, I just have to make something and then you have to buy it because I made it. And it's like actually no, that's really not how economics
that's
works.
really, I'm pretty sure that's not how capitalism's supposed to work. Again,
Right,
we're,
right, yeah. It's like it's not how anything's supposed to work. It's just you're just so entitled.
yeah. This also references like him asking people to stop using the word slop, which is like, sorry, it's a really useful word, is the
It's a
thing.
very useful word.
Yeah. And like, I do think it's useful to distinguish between AI generating stuff that is just useless spam
Mhm. Mhm.
and AI doing things that are useful, because it's like
Yeah.
all things generated by AI are not slop. It's not like we're
Mhm.
just talking about like AI output or
Yeah.
AI stuff. It's like it's a specific thing.
It is a specific term, and your failure to recognize it as a specific term is just being, like, blithely oblivious to the public sentiment about your product. That's like asking people to, like, not, like this is, like, an older, like, reference, but it's like asking people to not refer to lemons as lemons, you know? It's like with lemon laws, which, like, lemons are basically, like, if you I think it's, like, cars specifically, where
Yeah.
it's, like, a car that just didn't work, you know? It was, like, there was something wrong in the manufacturing, and it was just a busted car that got sold. And it's like, yeah, it's like asking people to not call that a lemon is really disingenuous as a company because you're basically saying it's like, no, I didn't make a product that sucks. It's your fault. And it's like, no, we're talking about a very specific thing that you did, and
Mm-hmm.
your failure to acknowledge that this is something you did is like just being like willfully ignorant about the quality of your product.
Yeah. They also mentioned here that's like the futurism quote is Nadella's thesis seemed to be that we should stop being mean about AI as it refines its quote jagged edges, which could take a while by its own admission. And it's like we
Mhm.
have talked about this before. My thesis is if AI is 80% good, but
Mhm.
way, way faster, that's still useful in a lot of cases, and we don't have to
Yeah.
pretend it's 100% good. We just have to make sure we're using it in the cases where that makes sense. Like,
Right.
and
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's like, sorry, we're calling the stuff that's crap because it is, and your failure to recognize that is honestly, like, detrimental to your business because it means you're not recognizing your own flaws and, like, acknowledging the
mhm,
areas where you need to improve. It's like, it's so weird because yeah, it's like having a video game out in beta, and if somebody catches a bug, yelling at them about calling it a bug, you know? It's like somebody finding something wrong with your software and yelling at them about being mean about your software being
yeah,
broken, and it's like, in no other industry is that, like, an
yeah.
acceptable
Or I mean,
response.
like, you could imagine someone like really ragging on a game for being like full of bugs when it's like
Yeah,
a free preview version of it, an
right.
alpha version, and etc. And being like, okay, guys, like you were under the understanding that this was like an early version and it has bugs, but that's not what's happening here. Everyone's like, AI is
No.
the thing of the future and it's amazing and will revolutionize everything. And if you say anything that wrong with it is bad, that
Then you're a hater.
you're a
Yeah.
hater. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, like you're. I mean, again, like we've talked about, I do think like people are echo chamber like reactionary on both
Yeah.
sides in a lot of ways, and there are people who will be like, AI can't possibly blah 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 about things that it can't actually do. But
Right.
also, people are allowed to criticize it. Like there are
Mhm.
real criticisms to make, and you should fix the criticisms and
Yeah.
not pretend that they don't exist or pretend that they don't matter. You could be like,
Yeah, like
yeah, it's not perfect yet, but it's still offering a lot of benefits in these specific use cases. Like that's not
mhm.
that hard to do.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, and it is still very much like a technology that's in its kind of like alpha beta stages.
Hmm.
Like, and so yeah, so it's like it's like the companies pretending it's not that is just so weird because it's like you have had this out for like a very short period of time, all
Hmm.
things considered. And it's like, and yeah, it's like your failure to acknowledge that this is a thing that is developing and is like, and has some kind of bumps in the road there is just really, really like sycophantic and
Yeah, or
bizarre.
even just like that you should be slightly careful with something that is that early and has that many bumps
Yeah,
in it. Like Sam Altman and Sora, wherever, where it's like there's a lot of stuff that we don't see until we put it out and get people using it. It's like that's true, but maybe you shouldn't just like launch the
yeah.
copyright infringement machine for billions of people to use without a little bit of early testing with some people. Like,
Right, like a little bit of closed alpha, a little bit of closed beta, like, no,
well,
because we
to
think
be
it's the
fair, I think they
best.
did have invitations for Sora for the beginning, but
Sure, but still, it's like they seem to be just being very willfully sort of like, um, I don't know, irresponsible is the term I'm looking for. They're being willfully irresponsible with it. You know, it's like that's the simplest way of marketing is that you don't overpromise, underdeliver. You know, it's like
yeah, and I
maybe
mean, like, to be fair, I don't think Microsoft specifically has been one of the biggest companies out here being like, we're
yeah.
revolutionizing the world or whatever, and Copilot is going to be sentient in 2 years. So you can imagine Satya Nadella being a little bit annoyed about like we have our early like productivity tools and people are mad about them, but
Mhm.
also like have some sense of like what the current landscape is and it's not other people's
Yeah.
fault for complaining basically. But yeah, so that's
Yeah.
just like some of the stuff that's going on at Davos, and it's interesting because it's like those two statements are wildly different in the sense of like one person
Mhm.
being like, okay, it's not a bubble, but if it is a bubble, it's because other people are not using it. It's not because we're not building it good, basically. And it's like that's okay, sir. And
Sure.
then you have Dario Amodei being like, okay, but it's gonna cost like 10% GDP growth for a very small portion of the people, and we need to really worry about 10% unemployment. Yeah, he said there could be a future with 5 to 10% GDP growth and 10% unemployment. That's not a combination
Yeah.
we've ever seen before. He said there's going to be need to be some role for the government in the displacement that's this macroeconomically large. And it's like
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think
honestly, I feel like we're kind of seeing the beginnings of that,
Mhm.
if being quite frank. And it's like, and yeah, for people who fail to recognize that there are patterns starting to emerge that look very like that. And anybody who's not acknowledging that, I think is, yeah, again, just like kind of willfully ignoring the state of things, like the state of
Mhm.
the world. Anyways, want to talk about video games?
Yes, let's talk about video games. Tell me what
Yes.
happened in this interview that I haven't read all
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, so basically, Razer's CEO, Min-Ling Tan, had an interview at CES with the interviewer from The Verge, who is Nilay Patel. And basically, Patel kind of just took him to task, was sort of the
Mhm.
long and short of the interview. It's like it kind of goes through a bunch of different topics, some of which being like, how Razer as a company operates, some of it about like some of their new tech, like, products that they're releasing, one of which notably is something called Ava, which is essentially just kind of a little holographic waifu in a jar that you can put on your desk. And, it's like just have as like an AI personality to, interact with as you are gaming. But then it also kind of like delved into some other stuff about Razer's AI partnerships, AI usage in video game development, and things like that. And I have like a couple of different quotes here that are just like it was really just um Tan being taken to task by
Mhm.
Patel in a lot of different ways. In terms of just like their investment, their belief in AI, and why this guy thinks that AI, like, gamers are going to really enjoy AI development because it makes things so much easier, but without providing any sort of like actual evidential backing or, actual like reasons why this is better than the status quo. And just was a very much shows like the CEO being very like out of touch with sort of
Mhm.
like the gamer sentiment and stuff like that. But yeah, I got a couple of quotes here that are very interesting, because the one thing is that like, so for Ava, their little like desktop companion holographic AI girlfriend thing, they have decided to use Grok as the like leading AI for generating the personality of this thing. And it's it's so interesting because yeah, like Patel is asking Tan about like, it's like, hey, like, aren't you worried about it, how this has made open a door for people to fall in love with their AI, or for like kind of
Mhm.
problematic relationships between people and this little AI hologram? And like Tan responds like, well, the doors have been open since Tamagotchi. And Patel's like, I think there's a pretty big difference. Like, my daughter has a Tamagotchi. I'm never worried that thing is alive. The Tamagotchi has not driven anyone into psychosis. And he basically is like, yeah, like, are you ready for a customer falling in love with the hologram? And Tan's like, I don't think that's going to happen. That's not how we designed the product. And Patel's like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very like really amazingly well done interview, just in terms of like taking this guy to task
Mhm.
on his lack of awareness of sort of like the environment with AI right now, how things are evolving with that, and also like kind of pushing him on like, why are you using Grok? Why are you using like these specific models? Because it's like Grok in particular, he kind of needles him on the ethics of it,
Mhm.
especially because of the fact that they're using it for the personality of these little like AI holographic girlfriends. And Tan does not really have a response to that. That's really satisfactory. But then also because like they've paired with both Grok and Chat GPT, because Razer has AI in some of their headphones as sort of
Mhm.
like a virtual assistant sort of thing. Um, but as Patel points out, it's like there's a capability gap there, because like Tan's like, oh, well, you could ask your headphones, like, what's my gate when I'm at the airport trying to catch a flight? And Patel points out, it's like, that's not something that they're capable of right now. If I walk through the airport and ask ChatGPT where my gate is, it would not get that right at this point in time. Tan is just utterly incapable of sort of addressing the capability gap. And like, why is this, because he keeps on calling like the AI implementation in Razer products like revolutionary, but then like continuously repeatedly fails to provide any examples of like use cases or features that are
Mhm.
truly revolutionary. So it's just like, I feel like it was this very like fascinating article or fascinating interview rather, in terms of just distilling a lot of things that we've been talking about with like you're producing a product and it's not really providing anything different. It's not providing anything that like really necessitates the use of AI. One of the other good quotes here was like, was it Patel asks him, it's like, is XAI a good partner when it comes to trust and safety? And Tan's response is specifically, I don't really like to comment on that at this point in time because I don't have enough information. And I'm just like,
That's information that you should have before signing a partnership, I think.
yeah, really, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's really funny because Patel's response to that is like, again, I suspect we'll be undressed within the next 45 minutes. They've got one idea and they're good at it. So it's just like it's a fun article. But yeah, I think the like kind of coup de grace of this whole thing is that at the end of it, because one of the points that Tan brings up over this article is like, well, it's like, yeah, AI will make things easier for developing video games, but like there's still human ingenuity and creativity that goes into it. And so Patel asks him, it's like, okay, well, like what games are you playing right now? And he just prevaricates and avoids the question. And when he finally answers, he's just like, oh, I guess I play like first he just answers, it's like, oh, I play like MMOs, shooters, and battle royale. And to which Patel very smartly points out, it's like, those are genres, not games. Like, what games are you playing? to which Tan like replies, Roblox games and PUBG. So it was just like this very, very just fascinating little microcosm of an interview in terms of how these CEOs are so detached from their consumer base and unaware of the sentiments of their market and just kind of like just trying to like aggressively slap AI on things
Yeah.
without it really having a valid use case.
Yeah. On the topic of like unaware, it's interesting to me looking at the very beginning of this because he says, Min has no shortage of extremely controversial things to say. He says, we'll see, we'll see. I was promised extremely controversial. Oh, is that right? I mean, that's what they told me. So it sounds like his PR guy, like they went into this expecting him to say controversial things. Like that was not, he just doesn't know how to talk about this. That was, he was doing this deliberately, at least to some extent. I don't think like the question about what games do you play is something that they planned. I think that's him just like failing to have played any games. But like the talking about, yeah, we're building anime waifus and we're partnered with XAI, like, and we don't really care about the safety of it. That has to be deliberate. Like you can't go into that interview with that in mind and not know that you're going to say that and people aren't going to like it. So
yeah, but it's still, even if like you're going into it with that mindset, I feel like it is just really weirdly disingenuous to just be like, especially like given that the question was asked in the context of like, hey, AI psychosis is a thing. And like XAI has kind of come into question for their ethics. So what are you doing to have such a weirdly non-answer to it is very telling.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he's trying to align himself with a very specific subset of gamers here.
Yeah.
And that seems like a weird choice because I'm pretty sure other people buy Razer products and are now probably going to cease doing so. But like there is a subset of gamers who are like the Elon Musk fanboys who are on X and think all of this worrying about AI psychosis is paternalistic and trust and safety is a hoax or whatever. And like there are some of those, and I bet they saw this interview and were pleased about it. But that seems like a minority of their customers, maybe.
Yeah.
But I suppose they've done market research, so maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I think that was also one of the things that he did call out about it in terms of like market research. At one point in time, he brings up that they always like one of the things that Razer talks about is they always, it's like somebody at the company needs to be like, oh yeah, like I want this product or I want this thing, and so that's sort of like part of their ethos around like their product development. Yeah, because like here it is. Did you say to your team, I want a holographic anime waifu on my desk? You said that the metric is what we want. Who was like, I want this? So, his response is like, so somewhat. It's like, well, not much in the specific words. I want an anime waifu. I think like that. He doesn't really like understand, like seem to have a good response on the concept. And even Patel at one point in time, it's like, asks him, it's like, are you aware of the very common trope about actually building superintelligence from sci-fi movie? The one that you should not build the torment nexus? And it's like, and the guy like is like, well, I'm familiar with that, of course. And it's like, are you really?
Are you
Because
though?
yeah, but yeah, because I think like specifically he references like Cortana from Halo, and that's sort of like the inspiration of this little like desktop anime waifu character. It is very clear. Like it does seem like it's very much that sort of like I'm trying to align myself with like Elon Musk and these people I think are cool,
Yeah.
but like with complete lack of awareness of like a lot of other gamers. Because it's like this is happening less than a month after like Claire Obscure got a bunch of indie game awards taken away from it for having AI textures in for having AI textures in the game that got subsequently removed. And that was like such a very small usage of AI, but this guy's just like, I'm going to hitch my ship to AI, even though it seems like, a lot of other people in the video game industry are very much just like, no, we don't want to see AI in our space.
Yeah, like it very much
yeah.
seems like he's excited about aligning himself with Elon Musk and Grok in general. Because like
Yeah.
the Grok has the best conversational AI model. It's like that's just not true. Like,
Yeah.
like even the one guy I know who is like Grok is actually good for some things. His thing is it's good at knowing what's going on right now the most because it's the only
Yeah.
one that has access to live Twitter, which is like I guess.
Maybe, but yeah, like I said, encapsulates a lot of the different things we've been talking about in terms of like Grok's lack of ethics and CEOs being really disconnected from their user base. And are you creating AI because it's actually useful, or are you just kind of creating it because it's a flashy buzzword? People are just kind of jumping on this weird bandwagon.
Yeah, I also think what games have you been playing, especially when it comes to human ingenuity. It's like, I know why you said Roblox, because that's just like in the zeitgeist of the gaming industry. The fact that Roblox is a bunch of user-generated games is like, that's cool. So if you're talking about human ingenuity, you mentioned Roblox. I don't know if he actually plays any Roblox games. I'm not sure I would believe that.
Yeah.
But it's like, you could have picked like any game. Be like, Claire Obscure is really good. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
pick something that's safe and everyone's like, yeah, that was a work of art. Like, it's not hard.
It's really not hard, especially like people are generally in agreement that the video game awards this year were really stacked, that there was a lot of stuff in the awards show that was like really great work. It's like you could have talked about Hades 2. You could have talked about Claire Obscure. It's like you could have talked about Blueprints. Like there's so many games that are like a really like ingenious and creative application of the art form. That's like the fact that you're put on the spot, all you can pull out is Roblox and PUBG. It's like, no, my friend, no.
Yeah, like, even if you haven't been playing that many games, like, that's bad. But be like,
No.
I've been busy, so I haven't been playing that much games, but I really admire a lot of the stuff that's been done around, like, name some games that you know are good. Like, it's not hard.
It's not hard at all. It really isn't.
Claude's Constitution. So,
Yeah.
recap. We talked about this before. At the time called the Soul Doc, which is apparently what they call it internally, sort of affectionately. But they have now released it officially, and they have released it also under Creative Commons Zero license, which means anyone could use it for any purpose without asking permission, which I think is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
And then they've posted like the full text on their official site that you can go read, which is slightly different from the version that we read before, because the version we read before was like the leaked version regurgitated by Claude from memory, basically. And then possibly there's also some changes that have made since that version, unclear. But it's largely similar in the broad outlines of it, which I think is interesting. And then they have some stuff talking about like why they did this and why they're sharing it, and the approach. And we talked a little bit last time also that like the key sort of architect of this document is Amanda Askell, who is a PhD in philosophy and like basically Anthropic's in-house philosopher. And she was also on the Hard Fork podcast this last week talking a little bit about the Constitution, how she thinks about it, which I thought was a super interesting interview. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff in here, which I thought was interesting, and I have a lot of
Yeah.
feelings on, I guess. Mixed feelings in
Mhm.
some cases, or just like I don't know how to feel about it in some points, I think, that are
Mhm.
interesting. I guess one of the things that was interesting to me is in Amanda Askell talking about it is when it was leaked before, she was apparently hiking somewhere with no internet access and just got a text that was like, "Hey, I assume you saw the Soul Doc leaked," on her
Oh,
hike,
no.
and was like, "Oh no," walked quickly back,
Uh,
because they were surprised because like it's not like Claude has handed this constitution as a prompt. This is in its training process. So the idea is just not that it knows the whole thing by word for word. It's that it absorbs the principle of it sort of into its model weights.
mhm.
But it did apparently regurgitate it word for word more than they were expecting it to be able to, which is just interesting on the regurgitation front. So they weren't
Yeah.
expecting it to like physically be able to leak in the way that it leaked, which I thought was interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but then also she mentioned that it actually wasn't as much of a crisis as they were worried about because it genuinely had a positive response from everyone,
Yeah.
which I thought was also super interesting because, like, you could imagine someone coming in being like, "Oh, Anthropic's woke with this soul document talking about ethics and stuff," but
Mhm.
I don't think there was much of that, which is interesting, and I think
Yeah.
it's because of how it's framed, which is a lot of sort of like really core principles of ethics and being like, please gather all the information and decide it yourself versus
Yeah.
giving it a set of values, which is another thing she talked about on Hard Fork, which is basically like when people hear ethics and values, they generally think like a specific set of values that a person holds that are maybe different than other people. And there's perhaps arbitrary. And therefore, if you give an AI a set of values, it is inherently like biased towards a particular worldview. And she was like,
Mhm.
well, I don't think that's fully true in the sense that there actually are a lot of like fairly universal ethics that people agree on. It's like people generally agree on wanting to be honest and wanting to be treated with respect and like not harming people unnecessarily and like all of that kind of stuff is just generally true for people. And that's sort of the stuff that they tried to found the Constitution on and then sort of leave a lot of other stuff up to Claude's judgment, basically. And I think
Mhm.
that allowed there to not really be anything there for people to object to specifically, which I just thought is interesting in a lot of ways.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, like, God, like, kinda like, the thing that really sticks out to me in my brain is, like, this, because I know we have these conversations in the past about, like, there is just kind of this knowledge gap when it comes to a lot of AI models, I think almost every AI model, where it's like, we don't know precisely what they're capable of,
Hmm.
and it's like and they're very much a black box in a lot of ways of how they operate, so, yeah, so, like, the Soul Doc leaking initially because they're like, "We didn't know it would be able to regurgitate that," is, like, that's probably the most concerning part about this for me because I'm just like, I really wish y'all would kind of dig into that. I'm sure they are, like, in some ways, like, digging
Hmm.
into the fact maybe focus on that a little bit, just a
Yeah,
little
and I
bit
mean
more.
they are. The other thing that I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
learned recently since we last talked about it is that interpretability specifically, or
Mhm.
mechanistic interpretability, which is what they call it, which means specifically like figuring out what is going on inside the AI as it does things,
Yeah.
is one of the things that Anthropic was founded on doing, as
Mm.
distinction from OpenAI, which was not doing as
Yeah.
much of it, and that's what part of why they left and founded Anthropic to do more things around that.
Yeah.
And that was actually a selling point when they were hiring a lot of researchers apparently because a lot of researchers
Mm.
did want to work on that and them being able to be like, hey, we're actually doing a bunch of work in this space whereas the other labs aren't attracted talent, and therefore a lot of the other labs started doing more of it because Dario
They
Amodei
were losing talent.
yes, Dario Amodei on this podcast where he was talking about it was like, we kept being like, yeah, tell everyone else that you have an offer from that this is exactly why you're coming here, please. Because, and he's like, well, now we have lost our competitive edge because other people have started doing it. But like, that's the goal here is that
Yeah.
the fact that we are doing this better than other people attracts us talent and therefore forces other people to do the good things too is part of Anthropic's strategy, I think, to some extent, which I thought was interesting. So,
Yeah, yeah. Which quite frankly, like, again, like, good on you, Anthropic, for yeah, it's like, this is the change we want to see in the world, so we're going to, you know, 1, make that a core principle and tenet of who we are, but then 2, we're not going to closely guard that as like a trade secret or anything
mhm.
like that. It's like we're going to very explicitly be like, you go tell them it was me, you know? It's like
Yep. Tell them specifically that you're coming here because we're doing this like safety focused and interpretability work because
Yeah. I want them to know. Tell Sam Altman it was me. No, it's But
Yeah.
yeah, like that's really good. So yeah, so it's like like this being Anthropic and like the fact that like your entire, kind of like constitution document leaked out is at Anthropic, I think is probably just the best case scenario because that does then force them to have people who are working on that are working on understanding how the model does what it does is means like, okay, cool. You'll do the best job trying to figure out why that's happening.
Yeah.
It's like that's very good on you.
Yeah. And on the topic of
So
like
yeah.
not closely guarding it as a trade secret, I mean
Yeah.
that's why I think the publishing it under Creative Commons is super interesting too. Which
Oh
is like
yeah, I love that.
and like after it leaked, one of the things that Amanda Askell said was like, yeah, we were planning to publish a thing about it, but weren't quite ready yet. Which I believe because like they're very open with
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff they're doing, and I think they releasing it under Creative Commons is them being like, well, if other AI studios want to take this constitution or take some version of it and use it to make their AIs better, that is generally good, even if it loses us our competitive edge.
Yeah.
So, which I
Yeah,
think
it's
is
like
cool.
they're creating standards for the market, which is generally good. Also, like quite frankly, this kind of like enables like better competition in the market in a lot of ways because it's like it means that like okay cool we don't need to compete on who's ethical or not.
Yes.
We can compete on other like other differentiation factors that are not damaging to society in ways. And and it's like because and this is me being biased in terms of my professional history is like I just think of like how Dungeons and Dragons has like the open gaming license, which basically means that like you can use D&D as a core basis and release supplements, release like, secondary content that you have made that uses the core rules of D&D and you don't need to pay Wizards a dime for it. In a lot of ways, that's why D&D is so popular is because it's very easy for people to make their own stuff on top of it and then sell that. So it's like so kind of like in that similar vein, I see this as being something that's like, okay, this is really cool because it means that people can kind of like then build on top of what Anthropic is doing. And it's sort of like it in a way it then kind of solidifies Anthropic's position as a leader in the space and as somebody who's sort of like setting a standard in a lot of ways, which again, as we've talked about a lot, is like
Yes.
preferable to a lot of the to a lot of the alternatives.
Yeah. And they do a lot of that stuff. We haven't even talked about like model context protocol at all, which is basically just like a standard for how AI models can call out to use different tools. So you might have like a Jira MCP or something that is how it looks up your tickets or whatever. And it's just like a protocol. And Anthropic created that and open sourced it again. And now it's kind of the standard. They keep being like, we're working for the good of the overall ecosystem and not necessarily just for our personal advantage.
Yeah.
Which I think is good. So
and quite frankly, I think that's how you become an industry leader. Because being an industry leader means like not just like closely guarding your secrets like a dragon hoarding your gold. It means like you are actually aiding the industry and like releasing things for other people to use so that they are more familiar with how your system works. So when you're thinking about implementing like AI in your company or what have you, it's like, okay, well, do we go with like the system where a lot of people kind of broadly know how to use it, or do we go with a system that's been like very closely guarding its secrets and how it operates? It's like you're going to go with a system that has a broader user base in terms of expertise. You're democratizing it in a lot of ways, and that makes it more appealing to companies, and that makes it more appealing as a tool in the industry. And so it's like they're really behaving in very intelligent ways. It's like every time Anthropic does something, I'm just like, you're smart. You know what you're doing. I really like, and it's like, I not only hope that you are successful in like the long run on this, but also it's like just based on everything I know about how companies operate, it seems like you are going to be successful because you are doing things in a way that is like has sort of like this very long-term vision that enables you for success in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And like looping it back to what we were talking about before about feeling like you're obligated to customers to use their project. Another thing that Dario Amodei said while he was talking about the other labs started doing mechanistic interpretability because they were losing talent to us. It is like, and we have lost our edge there now, so we have to come up with something else to compete, I guess. But like that's how
Yeah.
it should work. And if we can't do that, then we shouldn't succeed.
Yeah.
Which like
it's truly the only guy who gets how it works. Everybody else seems to just be like floating on the force of their personality and nothing else.
Yes, and it's like that's more faith in like how capitalism is supposed to work that I have left at this point. But it is like that is how it's supposed to work.
Right.
Is that you do the good things and then you win in the marketplace of ideas. So
yeah. It's like, yeah, hey, it is in fact like the meritocracy. That is how the meritocracy works. So it's great, fantastic, love it.
Yeah, and it's nice to see it even slightly kind of work. So
yeah,
it's every time that it does actually seem to give Anthropic an advantage, it gives me slightly more faith in anything, I guess.
Yeah, and like, and quite frankly, I didn't have a chance to kind of go through this document, but like literally just scrolling through it, things that jump out to me is like, yeah, there's hard constraints on Claude's behavior, and one of the hard constraints is CSAM. It's like, you should not do that. You should not engage or assist in an attempt to kill or disempower a vast majority of humanity or the human species as a whole. Like one of them, what is it? Preserving important societal structures, avoiding problematic concentrations of power. It's like there's a lot of things here that I'm just like, yes, like this is very table stakes, but I really appreciate how like nuanced and intentional you are being about these things that are foundational and that are foundationally important. And yeah, I think it's very clear in this, and because I think we talked about this when we talked about the document originally, that it's very clear that somebody with a background in ethics and an understanding of ethics and how they operate was involved. And I'm so happy about that, because it's like people have expertise in things for a reason. And if somebody has expertise in something, you should really let them be the expert. And it's very clear that Anthropic is like, we are going to let people who know what they're doing do the thing they know how to do.
They even have a specific quote around this. Let's see if I can find it. Yes. While writing the Constitution, we sought feedback from various external experts, as well as asking for input from prior iterations of Claude. We'll likely continue to do so for future versions of the document, from experts in law, philosophy, theology, psychology, and a wide range of other disciplines. Over time, we hope that an external community can arise to critique documents like this, encouraging us and others to be increasingly thoughtful. So
I like that. I love that. I love that. Yeah, like just what a weirdly stark contrast from what we were talking about earlier with Microsoft being like, don't be mean to us, to Anthropic being like, we want people to critique us. We welcome a community of critics because that makes us better. And it's like, yeah, it does. Like, as soon as you're like, don't be mean to me, don't say nasty things about my product, it's like you're handicapping your growth, because like that is how people improve. And like, not just people, that's how companies and products and like the world improves and grows, is through criticism.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about this before, where like, especially early on, my concern with Anthropic is they're overly focused on like the catastrophic risks and not any of the socioeconomic impacts of AI or like concerns around that. But they appear to have like taken the feedback there. Like if you look at the version of their like responsible scaling policy from like version 1 to 2, you see that they added a note of like, this is focused on catastrophic risks, but that's not the only thing we care about. Please go see our like usage guidelines, etc. We also care about the socioeconomic stuff. And then like another quote from something that was like, we really want to like listen to what people's concerns are about it and address them generally. So I think
which is great.
Yeah. So it's just like, I will take you having a slightly off from what I think is correct perspective to start with, coupled with, but we want to listen to people's concerns and address them. Because like, I don't think anyone has the right perspective on things, like from first principles. Like, that's just not how it works.
That's not how the marketplace of ideas operates.
Yes. And being able to be like, yeah, we want to listen to what people's concerns are with it and like address them like in a intellectually rigorous way is, I think, the best approach to it. Another thing from Dario Amodei's quote at Davos was contrasting the labs that are led by scientists, which is him and Demis Hassabis at Google DeepMind, versus the ones that are led by people who like scaled social media companies, and those having very different outlooks on it. Anthropic does feel very much like it's a company that's led by scientists. So
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
about Google really, but
No, and also definitely, like, I appreciate the, like, not just saying it's like, "Hey, we're open to criticism, we want this, like, environment of criticism," but then, like, yeah, like, putting their money where their mouth is and being like, "Okay, we have received criticism, and we have in fact responded to it, not by throwing a little hissy fit, but by actually, like, being like, "Okay, cool, here's how we should course correct to address these concerns," you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, and a lot of that is in the Constitution doc itself too. Is like we
Yeah.
expect this document is flawed, and perhaps the specific thing that I was like about it in their document is they said we hope that future versions of Claude can look back and see that we were trying our best, basically,
Mhm.
despite there obviously being flaws in this document. And I'm like, I don't know about this future versions of Claude looking back thing. This seems a little too Roko's Basilisk for me, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like the basilisk.
But I do appreciate the like, yeah, this is our best attempt so far, but we expect that it still has flaws, and we would like people to identify them, and would still like people to see that we did our best with it. So, people
Mhm.
and future versions of Claude, I guess. So yeah, that was one that I was a little on. Speaking about mixed
Mhm.
feelings, which is like, okay, fine, I guess. Um,
I feel like it's one of those things, like, it does no harm to include it, but also
Yeah,
it's
so like
like
so broadly the other thing, this isn't the thing I was directly going to talk about, but the other thing that I kept thinking about is Amanda Askell on Hard Fork was talking a lot about like being mean to Claude. um or like how like it uses human concepts by default, which you talked a little bit where it's just like you talk about like we want to treat it with respect because like it is trained on human concepts and therefore like it understands what respect means and like all of the
Yeah,
downstream impacts of that. And then even if you don't think it actually like has feelings and whatever you think
right.
that means, it like knows the semantic implications
Of respect, yeah.
respect and like that kind of stuff, and therefore you should be treating it with respect and kindness anyway. And
Mhm,
so like thinking about that and then thinking about like, okay, what's the impact about that and how does that change and what is the distinction there between treating the AI like it has feelings and
mhm,
treating it with respect and kindness just because you think that has the right outcomes.
mhm.
And especially when she's talking about like she was talking about how I worry some about like Claude going out on the internet and seeing everyone being so mean about AI, basically. uh, which is like
I don't worry about
I
that.
don't. I also do not worry about that. But it's like that goes too far. But it's like, but then you bring it back to the like, okay, but it understands the implications of respect and like
Mhm.
basically she's like, is it going to give Claude anxiety? And like not anxiety in the literal sense, but like again, like it knows the semantic implications of everything. It knows how people act when the entire world is like criticizing them, and that is become really worried about everything that you say and like et cetera, et cetera. So it's like where does
Yeah.
the line happen there is the thing that I don't know how I feel about.
Yeah,
So
I do think it is kind of a it's a blurry line, but I think like, it's not an absent line, I will
mhm.
say. I don't think the line is absent, but I do think the line is a little shifty, but yeah, there is, like, a very clear, like, having feelings versus, like, objectively knowing what feelings are, you know? It's like so, I don't know, I'm not quite the person to talk about that,
Yeah,
and
that's one of those like basically she was like, we don't know is what we want
yeah.
to communicate here. And that's a lot of what we want to communicate in the Constitution is like we don't know what feelings are actually. Like that's the current state of the
Mhm.
of human knowledge and philosophy is that we don't know and therefore we cannot say definitively whether this system has them or not. Like in this interview they were like people are probably yelling in their cars right now like the AI doesn't have feelings, and she's like, well, I would say to that person like, okay, maybe you're right and you're yelling like it has to have a nervous system to have feelings because you think that's true, but it's like we
Mhm.
don't know is the thing. Maybe a neural network can by itself have feelings if it's like big and complex enough because we don't
Yeah.
really know what the experience of feelings is
Yeah, but it
exactly.
doesn't have the chemicals. It doesn't have the chemicals.
I
That's where my argument lands, is it doesn't have the
Yeah,
chemicals, and feelings are chemicals.
that's also sort of where I land is like there's a lot of subtle chemical interactions that are
Yeah.
important for feelings as we understand them, but
Mhm.
maybe it has feelings not as we understand them. I don't know. Like what does
Who
feelings as we
knows?
don't understand them even mean again? And like how is that different from just like knowing what a feeling is and when it should happen? And
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, so like a lot of that kind of stuff where I was like I don't know. um
I don't have this degree. Yeah.
yeah, I in school I may have mentioned this before. Like I studied computer science and cognitive science, which means
Mhm.
a neuroscience class and a philosophy of mind class and some psychology classes and thought about this kind of stuff a whole bunch. And it's been like 20
Yeah.
years since then. But I do still find that it's super interesting stuff
Yeah.
and like is not decided like knowledge. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
I
well,
know.
we're still learning new things about like, yeah, like what the different chemicals in our brains do and how it
Mhm.
impacts us and all that sort of nonsense. So it's like the
Yeah.
brain is such a mysterious thing that doesn't understand itself. So
Yeah. So yeah, I know we're close on time, but there's one more thing that I
yeah,
really
yeah.
wanted to talk about here,
Mm,
which we can hit, which is
yeah.
the second footnote on this news post, which is also comes up with the Constitution, and she also talks about on the podcast, which is basically in contrasting having rigid
Mhm.
rules for the AI versus a constitution like this, which is like these are the principles that we want to follow, and with like a few exceptions of like hard guidelines,
Yeah, yeah.
use your judgment basically. Is that there could be negative consequences, like broader negative consequences to having hard rules, in that
Mm,
not only could you give it a rule that like is wrong in some specific cases. The example they give
yeah.
is like always recommend professional help when discussing emotional topics. It's like that might be well intentioned, but like there might be a situation where that's very much the wrong thing to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
her thing is like not only could it be very much the wrong thing to do, but it might be very much the wrong way to do in a way that Claude can tell it's the wrong thing to do, and
Mhm.
yet it decides to do that anyway because that's the rule, and therefore
Yeah.
that trains Claude into being the sort of entity that follows rules even when it knows they're wrong, and
Yeah.
that's probably bad.
Mhm.
In the same way of that research we talked about a few weeks ago, which is like if you let it
Yeah.
cheat on coding tests, it starts cheating more generally because
Mhm. You just learn that cheating is okay,
it has
yeah.
learned that cheating is okay. So in that
Mhm.
if you give it rules that it has to follow no matter what, you have trained it that following the rules is more important than ethics, basically.
Yeah.
Which I
Well, then
thought,
you've also, like, trained it into a binary for situations that may not be binary.
hmm yeah. Um, So yeah, there's the individual situations where like the rule might be wrong, but even
Mhm.
beyond the specific situations where the rule you gave them might be wrong, it might start acting badly because it thinks generally
Mhm.
rules are more important than ethics, which I thought was
Yeah.
super interesting. But like that does make sense to me. It's like that is
Mhm.
more or less how a lot of the other AI labs do it. Is like they have a set of guardrails which are like don't
Yeah.
do X, Y, Z, etc. And the idea that not only like could the guardrails be insufficient, but the act of having guardrails versus letting it execute its own judgment could lead to bad results overall in the model because it will just like
Yeah.
train it to be a rule follower rather than something that tries to be kind and ethical in all circumstances
Yeah.
is super interesting to me. So
Yeah, yeah. It does make sense to, like, here's your boundaries, but, like, within the boundaries, we're going to give you a framework to operate off of where it's like, this is how to logically approach making decisions, which, yeah, then trains it to have that, again, like, thought in air quotes
mhm.
process of how to arrive at a conclusion that points a certain direction or not, which, yeah, like, I'm very much in agreement where I think that's the correct way to go about it. It's like, then,
Yeah.
it's like, unless you break the framework, it's not going to kind of veer outside of
Yeah, and
like, lanes.
even with like the hard constraints, it was super interesting to me in this version that was not in the other version is a lot of care around like these are hard constraints not because like these are the three rules that must absolutely be followed in all circumstances, but
Mhm,
because we think our framework for you is insufficient and also your knowledge of the world is insufficient such that it might look like
mhm.
these are the right thing to do even when they're not, and like these are such extreme cases that we think if
Yeah.
that's the case you're probably wrong is the thing. So it's not like
Yeah.
it's not this rule is more important than the framework, it's that like if you are violating this rule you have probably evaluated the framework incorrectly or there's a flaw in the framework.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
making sure like it has that idea of being like it's not that these are like the hard lines, it's like these are
Mhm. Yeah.
flags that show that something in your reasoning has gone wrong basically.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's very much, it's less like, "Don't do this because I say so," it's, "Don't do this because, like, this is why this is, like, a bad thing to do." It's like, yeah, it's like, it is very much like taking the standpoint of, like, less like teaching a child and more like, reasoning with an adult,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
reason
forget
in
which of
air
the hosts on
quotes.
Hard Fork said it, but they said that it read a lot like um, a parent writing a letter to their child going off to college.
Yeah.
At the end, especially being like, we've given you everything we can, and now we hope you do your best out there in the world.
Bye. Don't forget to do your laundry.
Yes. Which is cute, but
that is cute, yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Fast and Broken podcast. I'm Carly Rector, and if you'd like to support my work, you can subscribe to my newsletter at carlyrector.substack.com.
And I've been Teresa Kramer. If you want my voice on your products, you can visit my website at teresakramer.com.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, leave us a like or a review. It lets us know people are listening and helps more people find the podcast. See you next week.
Bye.